Hello. Welcome to our Wednesday workshop with Erin Byron. So right now we're working our way through yoga for the creative soul. Yoga for the creative soul, switching publishers. So if you don't have your copy yet, there is a link for pre-sale in the video below. The focus of these Wednesday workshops is mental health through yoga and expressive arts. And you are welcome to look back through our wealth of videos here on this YouTube channel. You're welcome to pause during the activities, rewatch, share with your friends, or fast forward through the parts that don't resonate with you. We're currently in the middle of part 2 of Yoga for the Creative Soul. We're on chapter 9, as part 2 is guiding us through the 5 paths of yoga, the 5 paths to basking in, harmonizing with, understanding the true self, the 5 paths of self-realization. And the path we're studying right now is Gyan Yoga, the path of the intellect, of wisdom, of science and study. And we're thinking like biologists today. The theme is butterfly, and how we ourselves metaphorically are like butterflies going through that 4-phase life cycle again and again and again. So we're spanning a thick chunk of chapter 9 today, several pages, starting on page 128. And before we get going into that, I wish to acknowledge the lands, airs, and waterways that are supporting me here. The original caregivers of these lands along the Grand River are the Haudenosaunee, the Anishnawbe, the neutral peoples, and all peoples unnamed and unrecorded. So as we breathe the air and eat the food from these lands, as we walk forth drinking the water on these lands, we are blessed by that support of the earth, and likewise blessed by the wisdom of yoga, a 5,000-year-old tradition from India. This path of Gyan Yoga, this path of study, of science, is for the intellectual person. We could even take it to the extreme and say it's for the skeptic, because this is a path that seeks evidence in relation to the spiritual. As we get started today, I'd ask that you settle into a comfortable position and begin to monitor your breath, even noticing that simply by bringing awareness to the breath, there is a change in that depth, rhythm, and pace. But as you connect to those flows of inhales and exhales, notice that there is an observable response in your body. The system is responsive to being fed a deeper breath, removing more cellular waste with a long exhale, drawing in oxygenating support with each smooth, steady inhale. As you witness your breath, witness also the sensations of the body. Every thought and feeling we have has a corresponding reaction in the physical self, in the nervous system. And sometimes when we slow down and feel, perceive, The body also sends us messages about things that might be important for us to attend to. And these can be obvious messages like muscles that need to stretch, strengthen, or relax. Or they can be more subtle messages, the way the energy of an emotion can ring in the pit of the gut, in the openness of the heart, in the furrow of the brow. So as you attune to your body, to your breath, also attune to the subtle messages that are coming through. You don't have to act on them. You don't even have to decode them. It is enough to notice, to trust what is, to be present with it, not needing to take action. So noticing the breath, noticing the body, noticing the quality of thought and feeling that is present within you now. Begin to call forth a creative intention. This could be a project, a creative project that you're already working on. This could be something that's been on your mind for a while, or maybe you could just leave your mind open and relaxed to see what comes through when you're asked to focus on a creative intention. We can understand our creative path as being represented in the life cycle of a butterfly. It starts with an egg. It starts with the seed of an idea. In Yoga for the Creative Soul, it says that a blank page is not a play. A pile of shiny new metal is not an engine. The idea is the potential. The egg is not yet the butterfly, but everything needed to create a beautiful butterfly is coded into that egg. So for a few breaths, breathe the vitality of that creative intention. Bask in the seed of the idea. So much potential lives there. And as the butterfly carries forth through its life cycle, the egg hatches, and what emerges, a larva, a caterpillar. And that caterpillar is on a leaf, munching away. The way we begin to grind out that creative idea, we put the words on the page, we solder the metals together, we apply color to canvas. Whatever your medium is, you can think of the larva as that action, the idea getting going. And it might be a little clumsy, or it starts really broad, right? When we're getting into a creative endeavor, these are broad strokes in the beginning. It is the plot line of the play. It is priming the canvas and painting in the background. And so there's much potential still in this larval stage. This is the fight for survival. Is the larva, the caterpillar itself, is munching the leaves and taking in nourishment, coming plump, ripening. And for many creative people, the start is the really exciting time. The egg is hatched, the creativity is in motion. All things are possible in this stage. But then what happens? So still you're breathing. And if you want to begin to express this in your body, this is a nice time perhaps to incorporate some free movement, maybe a slow, gentle yoga sequence that you're familiar with, or just checking in with your body and moving and stretching in ways that you feel inspired to do as you contemplate these ideas. But whether you're still and visualizing, or whether you're carrying that visualization into movement, we're following the life cycle of the butterfly on into the cocoon. So what is this? We find a nook, we find a safe place. As we continue that creative endeavor, we might start to feel vulnerable. The more we put on paper or canvas, the more choreography we string together, the more of our true selves we're revealing. So if you don't create this thing, whatever it might be, it won't ever exist. You're the only one that can create the creation that would come through you. You're the only one who can do it. And so it's vulnerable to put ourselves out there in that way. And transforming being is also vulnerable. Finds a place to build the cocoon, usually on a twig under a leaf. And for those of you who rescue monarchs through the summer, you know where to look. You're looking on the underside of those plants where the caterpillars were noshing. And you can store aside those pupae and make sure that they actually come full and hatch into butterflies that you can then set free, versus just being some yummy breakfast for the early bird. Very vulnerable in this cocoon. So now, following the metaphor of the creative idea, as we're in this cocoon, what is it like? What is it like for the caterpillar? Caterpillar is very cramped, in complete darkness, liquefying, and growing wings. Never had wings before, probably never liquefied before, and being alone in this process. No manual, no expectations. When we hit the later phases of creativity, we start to feel that cramped. It's not the possibility of the caterpillar anymore. Whatever this thing is, it's been set in motion, and so our options are becoming more and more narrow. The play is nearly complete. We just need to put the finishing touches on it. The painting just needs a bit more brightening and shadowing. We're grinding through the end phases, and it's vulnerable for many creatives. We're starters, not finishers, and the finishing hurts. Being in that dark, vulnerable, transformative place of the cocoon hurts. And how do we make it through? I do encourage you to turn to Yoga for the Creative Soul. There's activities for each of these. We'll visit those activities in the upcoming weeks. We'll circle back to many of them, like how to complete a creative work when you're not a finisher. But when the metamorphosis has taken place, then the butterfly, no longer a caterpillar, is ready to come out of the cocoon. How easy is that? It's a fight. It's yet another fight for life. And these things, liquefying, growing wings, fighting out of the cocoon, these are natural processes. As creative beings, we are of creation, we were created, we carry creative force within us and are impelled to bring it into the earth, even if that is the way that we create happiness, create a career, create a healthy lifestyle for ourselves. These are all creative acts. Busting out of that cocoon is work. It's work. It's a fight. You got to want it. That caterpillar has to want to live. It's a butterfly now, but how can you tell the difference between yourself being a caterpillar and yourself being a butterfly if you haven't had the chance to fly yet? So that That press for completion is really, really tough. But when we come out the other side, we're free again in a different way. There's a whole other dimension to the mobility. So it's not just that kind of two-dimensional venture XY axis of a graph across and up, but as we crawl, that it's three-dimensional, that we can fly through open space. This is the freedom that a completed creative endeavor gives us, is the power of flight, the power to take this completed project and do with it what we will. Hang it on a wall, hide it away in a folder, read it aloud to our loved ones, produce a play. It can be big or small, but when it's done, we have the freedom of flight to do whatever we wish with that creative endeavor. And even if it's nothing more than the freedom in the heart, even if it's nothing more than the way that lightness can flow through us, knowing that we followed the seed of the idea, the inspiration, through to bringing it into material reality. This is the magic of the creative act. So as you have visualized, perhaps done some authentic movement with the ideas of the life cycle of the butterfly, how that applies to our creative process, I send you to your creative space now. Draw those life cycles, draw those phases, depict them perhaps in scribbles or in words, in movement or in sound. The way you can play with this expressive activity is to think of it in 4 parts. What is it like for me when inspiration lands, when I have a creative impulse? What's it like for me to begin a creative act? What's it like when I'm grinding it out, when I feel stuck or blocked or bored, the cocoon? And what is it like when it's completed, when I have brought this thing to fruition, when what was an idea is now the beautiful flying butterfly? Depict each of those 4 phases and what they are for you. And there is plenty of time for you to do this. I'll continue to give cues and make statements as we go through this creative time, that if you prefer to create in your own silence and space or with music on, just pause the video and come back for the conclusion at the end. But you are beginning now with expressing the inspiration, seed of an idea. You might do this through color, the way the color moves across the page. You might do a little self-portrait of yourself having an idea or feeling inspired, empowered by your creative juices. And the second phase of this creative activity, this expressive arts activity, is to express the action. This is the hatched egg. This is the larva, the caterpillar. This is the idea, alive and growing. If you want, for the mental health aspects of this, now anytime we're expressing ourselves or creating, we are cultivating mental health. They've proven this again and again with studies, that when we are creative, even if it's something as simple as coloring in a coloring book, it brings us into more of a parasympathetic response of the nervous system: rest, digest, connect, and create. Parasympathetic. It activates the parts of the brain that are associated more with mindfulness, self-reflection, safety, ease, connection. And expressive arts, creativity, can help us process unwanted emotions, stressors, pain, that which is uncomfortable and that we do not wish to carry with us, can come out of us via the creative act. So perhaps you are depicting the seed as the pain, physical or mental, emotional, that is held within, and the caterpillar, the larva, as the next phase of action in the mental health journey. Thinking of it more in mental health rather than creativity, those are options. And moving on from the depiction of the egg, moving on from the action of the caterpillar, from the action of creating life, gaining nourishment, moving through the world in smaller, perhaps more shuffling ways, we move to the cocoon phase and depicting the cocoon. So from a creative perspective, when we're in a cocoon, we are working through the more challenging and vulnerable aspects of that creative endeavor. So perhaps here you're again depicting creativity as it faces boredom, blocks, frustration. Perhaps it is another self-portrait and what it's like when you feel vulnerable in the face of a creative act, or you aren't so sure that you want to finish what you started. Perhaps from the mental health perspective, this is where the quote, "It's not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough," comes in. That again, the cocoon is painful. The cocoon's not the fun part of this journey. And in our mental health recovery, we continue anyway. We stay hydrated. We do our yoga practice. We reach out to our friends when perhaps we'd rather stay in bed or isolate or fret. Maybe rather isn't the right word, but that's sometimes what we wind up doing, isn't it? When we face mental health challenges, we find it hard to maintain the lifestyle of health. And so here, as we're depicting the cocoon, maybe drawing ourselves in that cramped space and listing the obstacles we're facing, we're also acknowledging that nature is continuing to take its course. It feels like we might not make it through to the end. It feels very painful. And yet, changes occur. Nothing just stays the same. Changes are happening. And we go through the fight out of the cocoon. I've cued you 4 activities, but if you want to depict that fight out of the cocoon as its own, you go right ahead, because it's a fight for survival to stay in that cocoon and make it through the transformation. There's the fight to freedom. But the 4th activity is depicting the butterfly. So you can dance this butterfly around the room, make the sounds through your musical instrument or your voice of the light, colorful freedom of that butterfly. Drawing it on the page as a representation of what it's like when you have completed that creative endeavor, or what it's like on the mental health journey when you know you applied your healthy coping and things got better sooner this time. I will add what many of you creatives already know, which is that the endeavor is really never complete. We just decide to stop. We can always add more touches to that painting. We can always put that poem through another round of edits. There comes a point where we let this creation as it is be the thing and just enjoy flying from flower to flower. So here is your depicting the butterfly phase in whatever way makes sense, through self-portrait, through scribbles, through words. Depict what that is for you, to feel free, to complete something important. We don't spend a lot of time looking back, but the past deserves acknowledgement, if not dwelling. The past deserves acknowledgement, to acknowledge I made it through that time in the cocoon. I was once at a different stage of evolution, munching leaves, thinking this was all there was. This was just an egg. This was a seed that carried the potential of where I am now, but was not yet the potential. I worked to get to where I am at this time. And it's a worthy effort. And I fly in color and freedom. You're welcome to continue putting those finishing touches on your expressive works. When you feel a logical stopping point arrive, bring yourself back to a seated position, back to a conscious breath, and notice what's different now. At the end of that expressive arts session, still playing with the creative work if that's where you are. No need to rush yourself through it, but when it is complete, coming back to that smooth, steady breath. Noticing what is. Tuning into the body. Noticing what is. And then regarding your expressive works, just passing your eyes over what you have written or drawn, carrying your body through the movements you remember, the sounds that were there. In one-on-one expressive art sessions, we take the time to process the creative work together, to glean a deeper meaning, to hear the messages from the creative self, from the wisdom that is beyond language within us. And we have a chance when we're live to share some of that in the group. Some of the sharing is available at the end of these videos. You can see what folks who were present on the day came up with. You can go to the Yoga for the Creative Soul or Wednesday workshops with Erin group on Facebook and see what expressions people are posting there and share yours as well. We are very much enriched by each other's expressive endeavors and truly feel less alone on our mental health and creative journeys when we see what others are doing. So here and now, I open it up to the group if anybody wants to share, whether all four, the egg, the larva, the cocoon, and the butterfly, or whether you just wish to share thoughts or one of those frames of your expressive work. I turn it over to the participants. Hi, George, you're fully open.
I'm fully open.
Yes, we can see you and hear you.
Okay. For some reason on my screen, I can't see me, which is always a good thing, but then I'm not sure what anybody else is seeing. So I kind of started on something and then I kind of understood what was going through with the butterfly. And
lift it up just a bit. Oh, yeah. Oh,
And there's tons of butterflies in my yard as my cat enjoys them. She's always sitting under the tree, under the milkweed plant, but they froze out last winter. We had such a harsh winter. So we're waiting for those to sprout out, but she's still out there waiting. But I just thought about my garden, and I spend a lot of time there, and I have the bigger garden in the backyard, and now I've planted a garden in the front yard too, to take up more space and to have more room. And people go by and they look at it. I never really see anybody spend time there, but one lady stopped the other day while I was out there and said, "I always like to look at your garden," and I thought it was kind of cool. But it starts with seeds, or you can buy plants. But my husband is a great seed starter. He has the patience of putting one seed in each spot, and he really comes up with some things. So this is my front garden right now with collards. I've had collards, and we've had collards a lot so far this winter. And even we're sharing them with the dog now, because so she gets some green vegetables. There's purple cabbage. And then out in the garden, I thought, it's our first time ever having potato plants come up. And my husband cut the potatoes and started the potatoes. And we have these beautiful potato plants, and each potato puts out a different kind of plant. And it's so interesting to see. Some have flowers, some are very big, some are not. So every now and then you'll see a potato has popped out. And I think of that kind of as the butterfly or the fruits. And so we quickly bury it so that it gets a little bit more time. But we've had kind of a hand-sized one so far. But it's interesting to see just how the garden changes and how it evolves. I can just spend a lot of time out there. So that was my takeaway or my thing. Just a seed of an idea. And it's so exciting, here, the winter garden does so much better than the summer garden, because it just gets beastly hot. So the seed catalogs come very early, and they come early in the fall. And so you get the seeds going, and it's just, it's kind of a way to get through the winter. So that's me.
it truly is. Thank you, George. Yeah, I know lots of gardeners are watching and feeling that along with you. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi. I'll just share that this I did 4. So this would be like the idea landing and that initial impulse, and it's exciting and it feels very bursty and good energy. And then the beginning point was just, I had trouble actually expressing that. How does it feel to begin? So I just was thinking the dot, begin with the dot, the circle, and that sort of thing. So energetically, it looked like that. And then the middle kind of tricky cocoon transformation stage, and maybe feeling stuck, looked more like and felt more like this, where form and shape is changing within. And that thought of liquefying is quite something. So a lot of letting go needs to happen, and in the creative process, reaching that point where you're afraid to wreck something, and to really just, you got to get past that or work through it and take risks. And that feels like the liquefying, letting go and just changing form. And then the final one was butterfly-like, but it also felt tree-like. So I think that combination of being connected cosmically, or air flying, but also grounded and rooted and expressive and joyful and heart-centered.
It's kind of angel-like.
Yeah, true. So it was good to kind of separate those stages and feel them individually.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Thank you. Such such different depictions, and yet so much truth in them both. The sharing's really valuable because of how different each of us is. So thank you. Thank you both for that. And thanks to everyone who shares to the group and is watching and participating in these videos. Anytime you want to join live, we're here Wednesdays, 12:30 to 1:30 Eastern. All the best, everybody.